When I agreed to let my 6-year-old daughter Hazel join my family on their summer vacation, I convinced myself it was harmless. Sunshine, cousins, grandparents, salty air, what could go wrong? My husband, Spencer, and I both had work commitments, so sending her along felt like a way to give her something we couldn't at the moment: time with extended family. I pictured sandcastles, sticky ice cream smiles, seashell collections, and giggles under the sun. It was supposed to be a gift. Instead, it was the beginning of everything unraveling. They returned a week later, pulling into my parents' driveway mid-afternoon, the car shining with sunscreen smudges and smug laughter. Everyone was talking at once: my sister Belle, my parents, overlapping voices like a chorus rehearsed for applause. Hazel climbed out last, clutching her stuffed fox by the tail, her little face too serious for her age. For a heartbeat, I thought she looked older, as though she'd grown while I wasn't watching. When I crouched down to greet her, she nodded quickly at my questions, but her grip on my shirt told a story her lips wouldn't. The ride home was unusually silent. Normally, Hazel filled every mile with songs or questions or stories that ran in tangled circles. That day, she simply stared out the window. At dinner, she pushed her food around without appetite, and when bedtime came, she slipped into her room without asking for a story, something she had never once skipped before. I tucked her in and asked if she'd enjoyed the trip. She nodded again, but whispered, almost too softly to hear, "I wasn't too loud today, was I?" The question made no sense at first. I told her she wasn't loud, that she never was. She blinked and said, "Then I can sleep inside, right?" My stomach dropped. She explained haltingly that Aunt Belle had told her if she cried or made too much noise, she had to wait in the hallway until she was quiet. My parents had agreed. She described being left outside the hotel room barefoot in the dark for what she thought was hours. Her small voice broke when she repeated the words Belle had told her. "The room is just for family." Something in me cracked open. I wanted to scream, to march over and demand answers that night. But Hazel's wide, watchful eyes stopped me. She was gauging my reaction, measuring how scared she should be. So I swallowed my fury and smiled the brittle emergency smile only mothers can master, assuring her she was my family forever, and no one could change that. She clutched her fox and finally closed her eyes. I sat beside her until the house went still, anger burning through me like fever. The next morning, I confronted Belle. She answered the phone bright and carefree until I asked if she had really made Hazel wait in the hallway. She laughed, brushing it off, insisting it had been a few minutes, and calling me dramatic. My mother's voice chimed in from the background, telling me not to start a fight over nothing. But Hazel had said 3 hours, and she had believed she wasn't allowed to sleep inside. That wasn't nothing. It was cruelty. They dismissed me as sensitive, the word they had always used to put me in my place. Sensitive when I cried, sensitive when I wanted fairness, sensitive when I pointed out the ways Belle was favored. Belle had always been the star, creative, dramatic, endlessly supported. I had been the practical one, the invisible one. My achievements were acknowledged with polite nods while hers were celebrated with tears and applause. By adulthood, the pattern was set. Belle and her husband, both filmmakers, were forever chasing dreams my parents financed. Meanwhile, I built a career quietly, working through scholarships and sleepless nights until my biotech company finally succeeded. And the moment money entered the equation, my family remembered me. Suddenly they missed Hazel. Suddenly they visited, bringing gifts and interest that felt rehearsed. Requests followed, small at first, then constant. An editing system here, a mortgage payment there, travel expenses for Belle's film festivals. I provided because I could, because it felt like connection even if I had to pay the entrance fee. Without realizing it, I became their financier, the silent ATM holding the family together. But none of that mattered anymore. Not the years of resentment, not the money I had poured into their lives. What mattered was the image of Hazel barefoot in a hotel hallway, crying in the dark, believing she didn't belong. My daughter had carried that wound home with her, and no apology or excuse could erase it. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, her words looping in my mind. The room is just for family. Family. What a beautiful word to hide something rotten behind. I knew then I couldn't go on as before. They had crossed a line I could never uncross. The morning after that sleepless night, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at rows of numbers that suddenly felt like confessions. Mortgage transfers, allowances, course fees, festival costs. All the payments I had been making to keep my family afloat without ever acknowledging how deep the habit had burrowed into me. Spencer leaned against the doorway, arms folded, his expression quiet but knowing. "You're really doing this," he said. I didn't answer. My fingers were already moving. One by one, I canceled every standing transfer. The clicks felt small at first, then heavier, until the last confirmation left me staring at my own reflection in the dark screen. My heart was pounding, but my face looked steady, almost calm. 2 days later, the calls began. Belle's voice chirped through the phone, syrupy sweet. "Hey, Dana, just letting you know the payment for the kids' club didn't go through. Must be a glitch." I told her it wasn't a glitch. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice cracking. "I mean I'm not paying anymore." There was a pause, then a laugh that sounded sharp as glass. "Is this about that little joke again?" "You can't be serious." "That little joke," I said evenly, "was you locking my daughter outside a hotel room for 3 hours. Belle scoffed. "You're so dramatic." I hung up before she could say more, my hand shaking as though I had touched a live wire. The next day, my parents called. My father skipped pleasantries. "The mortgage payment didn't come through." I said simply, "I know." My mother's voice slid in sharp and thin. "You can't just stop, Dana." "We'll lose the house." I told them to sell it if they couldn't manage. Silence hung for a moment, then my mother said, "After everything we've done for you?" That sentence struck like lightning, exposing the decades of imbalance I had swallowed. For once, I didn't argue. I just ended the call. The messages started that night, long and furious. "You're punishing us. You'll regret this. We just needed peace and quiet." That last phrase made me laugh until I startled the cat. Peace and quiet had become their excuse for cruelty. But now, for the first time, the silence belonged to me. Days passed. The weight of responsibility I had carried for so long began to lift. I woke up without dread, without bracing for another request. Hazel bounced out the door with her backpack, smiling again, her laughter filling the car on the way to school. At night, she asked for stories again, snuggled into her blankets with her stuffed fox by her side. It was as though by cutting ties, I had given her back a version of me she needed. Someone present, not stretched thin trying to keep others satisfied. But freedom didn't come without confrontation. A week later, the doorbell rang. I knew before I opened it. My parents stood on the doorstep, Belle between them with sunglasses shoved into her hair like a crown. My mother smiled too brightly. "We just want to clear the air," she said. "There's nothing to clear," I replied. They pushed inside anyway, trailing perfume and tension. Belle wasted no time. "You've gone insane." "All this over one misunderstanding?" I stared at her. "Leaving a 6-year-old barefoot in a hallway isn't a misunderstanding." Belle snapped back. "She was misbehaving." "We were teaching her respect." "No," I said quietly. "You were teaching her fear." My father tried his old peacemaker routine, palms raised. "Dana, sweetheart, we said we were sorry." "What more do you want?" My voice stayed calm but cold. "For you to stop living on my money." The words hung in the air like a gavel strike. My mother's face pinched. "You've become cruel." "No," I said. "I've become done." For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Hazel's small footsteps creaked on the stairs. She stood halfway down, clutching her fox, wide-eyed. I told her gently to go back to her room, but she didn't move until Belle glanced at her, and then she bolted. The sound of her running away sealed everything for me. They had already hurt her once. I wouldn't let them have another chance. When the door finally closed behind them, the house felt heavier, not lighter. The air still carried the residue of their accusations. Spencer poured 2 glasses of wine that night, silent but steady beside me. We didn't need words. The quiet between us was full, not empty. For the first time in years, I felt clarity instead of guilt. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. I had cut the ties, refused the calls, faced them at my door. But peace never lasts long enough to finish a cup of coffee. A week later, my inbox pinged with an email from Belle. Subject line: "The Secret Life of the CEO. For your consideration." My stomach turned cold. I should have deleted it, but I clicked. The video opened with soft piano music and a title card: "The Secret Life of the CEO. Inside the Ethics of EOS Bioinformatics." My company. My life's work. The footage was slick, spliced from conference clips, charity galas, and family videos. Belle's voice narrated in smooth, even tones. Behind every so-called ethical company lies a truth they don't want you to see. Then came photos of me, graphs of profits, and quotes twisted into hypocrisy. And then, Hazel. A blurred clip of her crying on a beach years ago, her scraped knee filmed in a moment of pain. Belle's voice laid over it like a funeral bell. Even her daughter has learned that compassion ends where profit begins. My throat burned. She wasn't just trying to ruin me. She was using Hazel to do it. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the mug beside me rattled. The kitchen went silent, except for the thunder of my own pulse. For a long moment, I just sat there, gripping the edge of the table, my mind refusing to process what I had seen. My sister hadn't just taken aim at me. She had dragged my child into her vendetta, splicing Hazel's pain into a weapon. That crossed a line beyond cruelty. It was deliberate, calculated destruction. I called Belle immediately. She answered on the first ring, her voice steady, as though she had been waiting. "Impressive editing," I said flatly. She didn't flinch. "People should know the truth about you, Dana. You built your company on lies." My hand shook, but my words came cold. "No, you just want money. You're blackmailing me." She laughed, a sound so casual it chilled me. "Call it whatever you want. If you'd like this video to stay private, Make things right. Make things right. The phrase hung in the air like poison. She wanted me back in my role, the financier, the lifeline, the one who paid the bills so the family dream machine could keep running. She thought fear would drive me into submission. Instead, it pushed me into action. By noon, I was in my lawyer's office. She watched the opening minutes of the video, her jaw tightening. "She's naming your company directly?" she asked. "Yes." "Then this isn't just defamation, it's commercial sabotage. And using your daughter's likeness without consent? That's a second lawsuit waiting to happen. If she publishes, we'll file immediately. If she threatens to, it's blackmail. Either way, you have leverage." Her calm, precise voice steadied me in a way nothing else had. For the first time since that email arrived, I could breathe. Law wasn't emotional. Law didn't care about family history, guilt, or manipulation. Law was cold and relentless, and now it was on my side. We arranged a meeting. My lawyer insisted I let her handle it, but I demanded to be in the room. That night, when I checked on Hazel, the nightlight painted her hair in soft gold. She stirred, clutching her fox, and mumbled in her dreams. I brushed her hair back and whispered, "They don't get to touch us anymore." The words felt like a vow. The next morning, my family arrived at the office conference room like actors walking onto a set. Polite smiles, polished lies. Belle carried herself as though she were about to premiere at a film festival. My mother clasped her hands, her face fixed in an expression of forced grace. My father's eyes darted around the room like he was searching for exits. My lawyer began, her tone measured and sharp. "This film contains defamatory statements and uses the image of a minor without consent. If you release it, we will pursue legal and criminal action, including charges of blackmail." The word blackmail landed with a heavy finality. Belle's smirk twitched, though she tried to hold it. "It's a documentary," she said. I leaned forward, my voice steady. "No, it's a ransom note with editing." My mother gasped softly, as if the obscenity was my honesty rather than Belle's deceit. My father opened his mouth, but no words came. "You think you're untouchable," Belle snapped, her mask slipping. "You built your empire on lies." I met her gaze. "Funny. That's exactly what you're doing now." The lawyer folded her hands. "If this video appears anywhere, we will have it taken down within hours. The penalties will be severe, financially, legally, and personally." For the first time, Belle faltered. She sat in silence, jaw tight, her eyes flickering between me and the lawyer as if searching for a way out. Finally, her shoulders sagged. "Fine," she muttered. "You win. You always win." She stormed out, sunglasses clutched like a crown ripped away. My parents followed, their silence thick with disappointment. Though whether it was aimed at me or their crumbling illusion, I couldn't tell. When the door closed, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't joy. It was something colder, sharper. Like standing on a battlefield after the smoke clears and realizing survival doesn't feel like victory. That afternoon, I drove to Hazel's school and waited across the street. The children spilled out, voices bright and alive, a rush of movement that contrasted so harshly with the heaviness I had been carrying. Then Hazel appeared, her little backpack bouncing, her face lit up with innocence untouched by the storm swirling around us. She ran to me, her arms open. In that moment, I knew I had chosen correctly. They had tried to use her as leverage, but I would never let them again. That night, I emailed my lawyer to proceed with full restrictions and a no-contact order. Then, with steady hands, I opened the family group chat on my phone and hit delete. The thread vanished, the screen going blank. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was clean. Hazel slept soundly that night. I stood in her doorway, listening to her breathing, thinking of all the times my family had called their cruelty truth or art. I understood now. It was never about truth. It was about control. And I had finally taken that control back. A year later, the landscape of my life looked completely different. EOS Bioinformatics had grown beyond what I once dared imagine. New investors, larger contracts, expanded lab space. The attempted sabotage had the opposite effect of what Bell intended. Instead of collapsing, the company gained credibility. People saw the smear campaign for what it was, and the resilience of surviving it became a story in itself. Integrity sells, it turns out, once you've weathered the storm. Hazel was thriving too. She had turned 7. Her once quiet sadness replaced by the buoyant, bubbling laughter of a child who knew her voice mattered. She filled rooms with songs, stories, and questions that spilled over one another. No one told her to hush anymore. She laughed with her whole face, and when she talked, she did it with the confidence of someone who had learned, finally, that love does not depend on silence. We hadn't spoken to my family since that day in the conference room. I never blocked their numbers, but I never needed to answer them either. The silence stayed clean, unbroken, no longer carrying the weight of expectation. Occasionally, gossip from extended relatives filtered back to me. Belle's marriage didn't survive the spring. Creative differences, they said, though it sounded more like chaos. She quit filmmaking, or maybe filmmaking quit her. The constant funding, the endless support, had dried up. She ended up in an office job. Her once grand dream shrunk down to something stable and ordinary. My parents downsized, selling the house they once insisted I pay for. The money they had poured into Belle's vision evaporated, leaving them with little more than regret and whispers. I could have felt sorry for them, but I didn't. They had chosen their masterpiece, their golden child, and now they lived with the cost of that choice. Hazel, for her part, rarely asked about them anymore. Her world was too full of friends, school projects, cardboard kingdoms, and adventures that required every ounce of her energy. I would sometimes watch her building castles out of scraps and narrating their stories at full volume, and I would remember the image of her standing barefoot in a hotel hallway, clutching her fox. That memory would sting. But then I would look at the vibrant child in front of me and know I had done the right thing. Every so often, a shadow of doubt crept in. Had I gone too far? Had I been too final in cutting them off? But then Hazel's laughter would ring through the house, and I would remember her whispering, "I wasn't too loud today, was I?" That was all I needed. No one should ever make a child feel unwanted in her own family. The truth is, I hadn't gone too far. If anything, I had finally drawn a line where none existed before. I had spent my entire life believing that family meant endurance, that love meant carrying the burden no matter how heavy. But that wasn't love. That was manipulation dressed up as duty. Real family doesn't exile a child to the hallway for being herself. Real family doesn't demand payment as the price of belonging. It took years of silence, years of being the practical, invisible one, before I understood. Blood is not the measure of family. Love is. Respect is. Safety is. And if those things are missing, then the word family is nothing but an empty shell, a mask for cruelty. Hazel will grow up knowing something different. She will know that her voice is welcome, that her laughter is not noise, but music. She will know that respect is not earned by fear, and that love is not conditional. And she will know, without a shadow of doubt, that no locked door, no cruel words, and no manipulation can ever take away her place inside her home. As for me, I've made peace with the silence. It doesn't sting anymore. It feels like space, room to breathe, room to build, room to love without strings attached. Sometimes I wonder what my parents think now, or if Belle lies awake at night resenting the empire I built without them. But those thoughts pass quickly, because their opinions no longer have power here. What matters is Hazel's smile, Spencer's steady presence, and the knowledge that the life we are building is free of rot. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this. Love is not proven by endurance. It's proven by boundaries. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Not out of cruelty, but out of love for yourself and the people who truly matter. So, what do you think? Did I go too far? Or did I finally do just enough? If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. And let me know in the comments, what would you have done in my place?